Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. Okay, welcome everybody. Hello, hello. I am Dr. Myriam Glavash. I am a board certified pediatric dentist working out of West Texas in Lubbock, Texas. I'm also on the advisory council for diversity in dentistry. And that was founded by Dr. Layla Highshaw, who's also here. We are a nonprofit organization committed to increase the acceptance rate of historically underrepresented minority students into dental school, which our motto is, if we can do it, so can you. So we're here talking about shadowing do's and don'ts, and we rallied 2 student dentists on the panel today. Student Dr. Jasmine Perry, a third-year dental student, a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Thank you for your service. And also student Dr. Alexxis Harris, a third-year dental student as well, and the current president of SNDA. Now, if you could each kind of introduce yourselves, where you're from, where you currently attend dental school, and also your favorite pizza topping. I'll go first, mine is pineapple. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jasmine, as she said, and I am originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. And I did my undergrad there at UNC, my master's at NC State University. And now I currently live in Boston, which is a fun fact. I really don't like it here. It's so cold. I would love to go back to North Carolina immediately, but 2 more years. My favorite pizza topping would probably just be pepperoni.
Okay, welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexxis Harris. I was born and raised in Sebring, Florida. It's a very small town. No one usually knows about it. I went to undergrad in Orlando at UCF, so go Knights. And now I'm here at UF. I'm a third year, like they said. And I would say my favorite pizza topping, I'm pretty plain, it's going to be cheese.
Oh gosh, pepperoni and cheese. I thought we were going to get some unique stuff. I mean, those are unique. They're very, they're very classic. Okay, so today we're discussing shadowing do's, shadowing don'ts. We'll go over a series of questions and give some time afterwards for all the attendees to ask like your questions about shadowing, additional questions, comments, and concerns. Also, just side note, please feel free to post some questions while we're talking about certain questions that we have aligned for today in the chat, because we'll definitely address them, or at least try to, before the end of today's session. And also, if the panelists, student Dr. Alexxis and Jasmine, if you guys are open to some students reaching out to you after this seminar, please put your email address of how they can contact you or phone number in the chat box. Also, remember this is recorded and may be posted to YouTube. So any information like personal that you do not wish to share, just hold that to yourself, or anything you do wish to share, go ahead, it'll be recorded and probably broadcasted on YouTube. Okay. So jumping into it, we're going to discuss shadowing do's and don'ts. One of our first questions, how do I pick which office to shadow? And Jasmine or Alexxis, anyone, go ahead and start.
Okay, I will start. I would say when I did my shadowing, I didn't want to like be selective per se by like a certain field of dentistry, because at the time I wasn't like, oh, I want to be a periodontist or I want to be a peds dentist. So I was just like open to any field. But I would say when you are choosing the type of field or shadowing dentist, to kind of like, either one, possibly consider this person as your future mentor, because they will be the person to also like, when you do need a recommendation letter for dental school, that will write that letter for you. So when you're choosing someone who will actually take the time to get to know you while you're experiencing your shadowing opportunity, because a lot of times, of course, dentists are always willing to have extra hands, but after the services are done and like the time commitment is there, it should also just be like asking outside questions. So I would just say, make sure that you can see them as your mentor outside of the office setting.
And Alexxis?
And yeah, piggybacking off what she said, I think I did shadowing kind of 3 segments because I was a little on the shyer side. So my first dentist that I shadowed was like my personal dentist that I experienced growing up. I'm like, okay, a less chance of them saying no, or like you're not comfortable with the environment, like it's your first time in dentistry. So I went hometown during winter break, asked my childhood dentist if I could shadow him, and he said yes. So I got, I think, the whole week of winter break, shadowed him, shadowed the dental assistants, like really understanding the flow of the dental office. I would say the second segment came in undergrad through the pre-dental student association that I was involved in. So, with that organization, you get exposed to many dentists and specialties and such. So I kind of went that route. Like, okay, if I did a community service with them, like, okay, do you have a local office, and kind of like follow up with that person. And then the third, I think, aligns with what Jasmine said, finding a mentor, like someone long-term, like, can I get a letter of recommendation? Can I connect with this person and make like a personal connection to basically carry throughout your dinner career? So I would definitely say, just do it. I think there's different ways you can go about it. But I think the main thing is that it's done before you apply to dental school.
So perfect. So 3 points from there. Join your pre-dental society. There might be some links through there. Your own personal dentist, even if you went to in your childhood, like, oh, I went to him umpteenth years ago. He doesn't remember you. He probably doesn't remember you. But go contact. They love, like, we love to talk, most dentists, with our old patients, and we'd love to take you under our wing. Just don't be afraid to ask. Remember, you need them more than they need you. So don't be afraid. That's easy. And then also someone that you can see as a long-term mentor. Second question, how do you guys go about asking how you can shadow? Like, how do you approach the person? You had a person in mind, like, oh, this would be ideal, but how would you go about it? Do you call them? Do you email them? Do you go to their office? Like, how do you guys kind of set that up?
I think my initial contact, since it was like not local, I did call. But you can always follow up with the email or in-person visit. I think that has a little better touch when they're able to see like the face to the voice that's asking, how do you present yourself in the office, knowing what you're asking for. And they love, just depends on the office, they'll pass the message along. You can also follow up with the email, like I think 3 days or a week, like, hey, just following up with my phone call about shadowing, list your name and contact number there. But I honestly will use every option I had, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with Alexxis. I would also do the same. In addition to, just walking in or just old previous contacts, I would like email them. Like I would just like Google the offices that are local to me, where I know that I can commute to and that will be convenient. That hopefully can also work with like Saturdays times, because sometimes like if you're in school, you may want to commit your time to Saturday or to the more of like a Saturday or later afternoon if you're in classes and stuff. So, seeing what their schedule is, seeing what their need is, and kind of aligning it with yours, because you don't want to like overcommit and then you start doing poorly in school. So you kind of want to have something that is going to be a balance to your schedule. So making sure that it aligns with your schedule. But also like, I would kind of like, in addition to emailing them, I would state like what my current strengths are. Like, I really love assisting, or I have background, taking x-rays. Basically, whenever you want to present yourself to someone, it's like, what can they benefit from having you on their team? Because a lot of shadowing opportunities turn into job opportunities. So that could be a lifelong career for you, from a shadowing volunteer to a assistant to a future, practice owner. You never know. So I just think even shadowing at a young age can have a lifelong reputation for you. So like when you are reaching out to those people, think of it in that aspect as well.
Great point. So main things: call, email, do a follow-up email. Do not overcommit, because people are finicky about that. You said you're gonna be there every Saturday and you can only do one Saturday. You're going on vacation, your mom's coming into town, not good. And then a great point that Jasmine mentioned is, what would you add? Because a lot of times people propose like, hey, can I shadow you? And they're kind of like, they don't need an extra body. They don't want to babysit because they know you're going to ask questions. But if you said, hey, I actually know steri. If I don't know, I'll try to find out, or I can help with paperwork or with patients, anything to shadow you for a day, the dentist will be a little bit more active, like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, come on in. next question. What for you guys that shadowed, what is a typical shadowing day? Like what did it look like when you were shadowing?
For me, it looked very different for each location. So like when I shadowed larger office settings versus like private practices that were smaller, I feel like I was able to like get my hands in a little bit of everything and kind of be working with the front desk, where 1 minute I may be answering phones, to, like you just said, 1 minute I may be in sterilization, wherever the need may be for that day. For example, a lot of times I noticed where they really appreciated, volunteers and people who are shadowing when people would call out. So it's like, oh, well, Jasmine, hey, we actually need to move you to the front today. And I'm like, well, you don't want to discredit any role in the dental office, because one thing about that I'm learning now as a third year, we're doing everything now. Like we're calling our patients, we're seeing patients, we're doing clinical diagnosis, but then I also have to like take a call and reschedule a patient because of things like that. So you kind of have to learn those same skills in dental school, and what you would typically have one day as a practice manager, you're doing and running yourself while you're in dental school. So you have to know how to call, you have to know a little bit about insurance. So I would say one thing about taken away from that experience is like, don't limit yourself to just say, I only want to do assisting, I only want to touch the mouth, because dentistry is an overall piece. Like what she just mentioned, like if you are in sterilization is a big component. Like if you know how to work that entire setting, that's really a big deal. So I would definitely say don't minimize any role in the dental office.
Okay, I would say definitely having a conversation before shadowing clarifies things, because each office is different, whether that is they want you to come in scrubs or is that business casual, because you don't know what job you will necessarily be doing at the office. I think the ones I did, we were able to wear scrubs because we're being more on the clinical side, but it can be expected of you to, hey, jump in, maybe help clean down a room or answer a phone call when things get hectic. And it's also the hours. Just don't think it's just like a 1 hour and you're done type thing, whether that's going to be a half a day, 8 to 12, or is that going to be a full day worth of shadowing? So making sure that's communicated, because if they're looking for you at the end of the day and you left at lunch, they'll like, I don't think they'll want you to come back for shadowing. So just having those clear communication upfront as far as attire, commitment as far as hours, and I think the roles that you're going to be responsible for are things that I looked for.
Perfect. And they already touched on some things we're going to talk about. But main things is do not discredit any role. When I went in the volunteer, I used to help the front desk a lot. And then when a dentist came in, she's like, girl, what are you doing up here? I need you in the back. Like, you're not going to school to do that. But over time, coming in and helping them, the front desk actually said, hey, girl, the dental director is coming next week. Timmy and Tommy, I ain't telling them you can come those days at 8 o'clock so that you can get introduced to them, because the other guys kind of went and didn't help with the front and went straight to the back. But because I came every day and always helped the front with like filing and stuff, I was privy to them trying to make that link for me. So it was really invaluable. Also, expect to kind of stay all day. It is so tacky when you go and like that's not communicated ahead of time, and you're kind of like telling the front desk, like, I kind of gotta go, and they're like, go, go, go. But then the doctor's like, oh, where's Alexxis? Oh, she left? Oh. And there's no it just looks really bad. So just kind of either get it up front, like, hey, what are my hours? What day can I come? How long? But don't just leave. Always communicate with the doctor themselves. That looks so tacky. That happens more often than you think, that people just kind of leave on their own accord because they had plans. That is fine. Just communicate those plans so that way they know. Okay, next question. Will I need to complete a background check or sign a liability waiver for shadowing?
Okay,
good, Jasmine.
I was going to just say, so I've never had to do any of that. But I'm sure, things could have changed due to COVID. There's a lot of different restrictions now. So I know like even now we still are doing COVID attestations here, in Boston, but I know that's no longer a thing in North Carolina. So I think it may just depend on your location, but If you do have to do a background check or something like that, if you know of something that may be alarming to them, I would just be upfront and honest. Like that goes for any job. Like if you know that you have something that is going to like raise a red flag, if you're honest up front, typically they respect that. And I don't think that they will look away as long as like you can attest to why it happened. And like, people make mistakes, but not sharing what happened will probably just like, you will know why you didn't get the job or get the role.
Yeah, I have to agree. I never had to do a background check or sign a waiver, but I think there was a certain level of professionalism that was held. So that's not discussing the patient information outside of that office. Ask your questions, to the doctor or the dental assistant. So I think just professional behavior was kind of like the expectation. It wasn't had to be signed off or like any background check. But like Jasmine said, definitely disclose that information because I think it's better to be honest up front and then they find out about it versus you're hiding something from them.
Exactly. Good point. So sometimes depending on the clinic and the background, if it's sometimes government places, they will require a background check. If it's sometimes a really uppity high scale place, they might have you sign a liability waiver that you're not going to touch anything, not going to touch any patients, or even like an NDA, which is kind of crazy, but some people have celebrity clients and they kind of, I'm not gonna lie, the dentist wants to show off to you. So you might be there when LeBron comes in, okay? Because they want to like play it off, but you can't say nothing because you can't say that he has 3 cavities. So like, so those things are, I just want to be clear, like those things are not uncommon in case you encounter them, but it's also up to your comfort level. But it's kind of a good thing because they want to make sure they're protected and you're protected and whatnot. Next question, will I get paid to shadow?
I did not get paid to shadow. I think that falls under a new category. If you do get paid, that goes under dental experience once money gets involved. So I was never paid for shadowing. It was just documenting my shadowing hours and maybe a letter recommendation at the end if I felt like the relationship was close enough.
Yeah, same for me. I never was paid for it. And like I said, it could have turned into a job and that was different, but you're typically not paid to shadow. And like I said, if you do get that opportunity, like Alexxis said, I don't think you can count it as shadowing anymore. You would just consider that as a job.
That's great to hear. I did not know that if you get paid, it's considered dental experience versus if you don't get paid, it could be as a shadowing opportunity. And always be clear. You might feel a little tacky asking, but I would get all that straightened out because the last thing you want is to go through a week of shadowing or several days and the person's like, when do I get paid? It's super tacky. So just kind of figure it out, maybe on the low versus asking the provider, but typically shadowing opportunities where you're benefiting and you're getting the experience and hours in hopes of a recommendation letter, you are not going to be paid. Next question, what do I do while shadowing or what will be expected of me?
I would say while you're shadowing, the main expectation is come willing to learn, ask questions. Like, don't assume that the dentist knows why you're there because it could be silly, like just solely that you're just there to volunteer. I know I used to volunteer at the Salvation Army in North Carolina, and anyone can be a volunteer. So it's not just a person who wants to be a dentist. So it could just be a person off of the street who just wants to come and help and just put in patients' names and records and stuff like that. So being clear about your intention, about your ultimate goal of why you want to be there is important so that, like I just said, you can build that reputation, that rapport with whoever that can support you the most along the way, because you may initially have interactions directly with the manager and not directly with the dentist yet, but the manager may know the dentist that may be best for you. Just because there are a lot of dentists, like I've worked in different offices where there were plenty of dentists around that I was able to be around to shadow, but the managers and the assistants knew like, no, we're not going to put her with her because, she's a very serious person. She won't really be able to ask a lot of questions. And if you want to ask a lot of questions, this is the best person for you. So a lot of times I think, talking to people, asking who would they recommend is important too, just because like, even myself, I think as a future newbie, I personally don't know if I would want someone to shadow me right off, because I'm gonna be so focused that I don't know if I would be able to like ask and answer questions when I'm trying to do my first class one. But maybe years down, like 10 or 20 years in, I would be open to, obviously someone shadowing me. But, sometimes, different personalities, all dentists are different. So you just want to make sure the right one is for you.
Okay. I think I'll go back to communication. So that's also asking the dentist or the dental assistant up front, like, can I ask questions during procedures versus afterwards, like if you want to do like a recap or a summary of like what was learned. But what you can expect during shadowing is like just watching. I observed and tried soaking everything in. And when I had time, I'll go write down little notes. Some dentists might even let you quote unquote assist, if that will, maybe suction or move the light or something while just like working in the area of them. But I think it also just varies in the office. Like we said, it can be the non-clinician side, it can be in the clinician side, it can just be in sterilization where you see no patients. So I think it just being open is the whole thing, making sure you communicate ahead of time so you're not stepping on your toes during the moment, and being okay if you do, you're learning, that's why you're there. Like you don't know the day-to-day of a dentist. And I think it'll be positive, eager if they see you asking questions versus just being there and being quiet. So
perfect. Yes. Yes, definitely main point is make clear your intentions, because even though you say like 1,000 times that you're a dental student, going to dental school or being a dental student can mean different things to different people. Even to this day, I'll say like, oh yeah, well, I went to dental school. Like they'd think I'm a dental assistant, because they also claim dental assisting school as dental school, or hygiene school as dental school. And even you tell everybody, the office manager, the front desk, they know a dental student is coming. At the end of the day, the doctor could still be like, okay, so what hygiene program were you applying to? Like, oh, I'm actually like applying to like dental school. Dental school? No one told me that. So it's like, be super clear, like your first interaction. Yes, I'm so-and-so. I'm trying to apply to dental school. I'd love to be a dentist. Like say those key words, because you don't know exactly what Jasmine said. There's several different people coming in and out the office. Like even though you feel so great, like, oh, I'm coming my first day. There's volunteers, there are people who need credit hours, there's high schoolers, there's dental hygienists, there's interviewers. The dentists, for the most part, they're just told in the morning, hey, a girl named Alexxis is coming, or a girl named Jasmine's coming in the afternoon at 1. She wants to be a dentist, but the first one wants to be a hygienist. Like they kind of lose thought in that. They just know someone's coming. So very, very sure to make yourself clear, because the dentist will either take you under their wing and tell you more because you're going to dental school. If they know you're dental assisting, they might like just teach you more random stuff in assisting. And at the end, he'll be so confused, like, oh, you're going to dental school. Oh, I could have told you about the crown. I was telling you how to pass me the instrument. And they're like, oh, no. And then, yes, be very, very clear. Next question, what do I wear? I know you kind of touched on it earlier, Alexxis, but what are some things that you guys wore? Did you guys wear scrubs both times or all times?
Yeah, I wore scrubs majority of the time. I don't think I ever just came in my street clothes. That's number one. Like, so don't wear street clothes. Don't just wear jeans. Make sure your shoes are like non-slip, because we're obviously in settings where you can slip and fall. So, sometimes our cute Nikes aren't always the best for us. They're cute, but they're not always the most comfortable to walk in all day. I've actually invested into what I now used to call my mom like old people shoes, because they're comfortable, but they're actually comfortable and I can wear them all day, and I don't consider them old people. They're quality shoes. Like I can wear them all day. So just thinking about that, but I'll just say, even thinking about, like, I know that like we're in a different time and we all like accessories. We love wearing certain hairstyles. We love wearing, certain jewelry on our face. We have a lot of piercings and tattoos. And, some dentists, like for example, at my school, like one of my professors, he has tattoos all over his body of just like little characters like Rugrats and stuff. And so I think it just depends on the dentist, but you can't assume that all dentists are accepting of that free spirit, because most people like professionalism and they want to make that clean look when they're presenting to patients, because some patients are going to be looking at you like, who is this little girl with this piercing in her nose, which we think is cool, but to other people that may not seem, hygienic. So I would just say, act as if you are already in the role, in the job, or even a future dentist. Like, how would you want your dentist to look?
Well, yeah, you said it all. That was great. I definitely had to wear scrubs as well. I think having your hair tucked back, minimal jewelry, maybe studs at best, no bracelet, just in case you never know what you want to do. I think just what everything Jasmine said is right. Err towards the side of professionalism. Minimal is always better. Make sure your phone's not on you. Leave that in the locker room, silent. Closed-toed shoes, socks. And yeah, I think that's basically what I wore every time, honestly.
Exactly. So be professional at all times if there's any doubt. You can always try to ask the office manager or someone like, hey, by the way, what do I wear? And they'll give you a heads up. Some places are particular. Oh, you're a dental student. I want you to be in blue scrubs, the end. But if you didn't ask, kind of like, oh, I would have showed up. But always hair slicked back, your own safety goggles, your own mask, show up. Eliminate the fashion. Some people want to go in like the new modern figs with the joggers and like you tuck in the shirt and like they just look too, for lack of a better word, sexy. So just be minimal perfumes, if any, clean, just very clean look, like stuff that covers your ankles, regular tennis shoes, nothing like neon yellow, nothing that makes you stand out because the staff will talk about you when you leave. But always err on the side of professionalism or just simply ask. If you're unsure, you can always bring one girl. I thought was a great idea. She came professionally dressed. And we're kind of like, oh, we want to do a working interview. Like, do you feel comfortable? Like, we can get you a lab coat. She's like, oh no, I brought scrubs. So I wasn't sure. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. I thought that was great that she had that as well. Okay, next question. Do I introduce myself to staff and patients when I shadow?
I would say absolutely, but it depends on what is appropriate for the setting. And like, it goes back to how are the dentist and their staff, freedom with their patients too. Because like you just said, if they're serving a certain clientele, they may not want you to be as showboaty or trying to talk just because it's like, this is not the place to try to get free season tickets or this is not the place to try to get a free concert. This is your job. So, of course, if they offer you the tickets, I wouldn't say, no, I can't take them because I don't like, I would be like, I would look and I would like, if you want to give them to me, sure. But being professional is definitely important. But at the same time, like, I think when you mirror the image of whoever you're working with, that kind of like, I always like mirror what someone else is doing. So that kind of just keeps you blended in. You don't have to look weird or out of place. If you just kind of mirror other people, I think that's a good way to go about it. So you don't really look like you're out of place, even if, like what she said, just like when you go there for your interview, make sure you see what everyone is wearing. Not saying you need to go buy a new pair of black scrubs because they have black scrubs, but maybe don't come in there with yellow scrubs. Like that's what she means by just kind of sticking to the core and the like what they would go by, their standard. But yeah, that's what I would say on that.
Okay, and for me, introducing myself to the staff is absolutely a must. Like you want to make sure you leave an impact because it can turn into a potential job. For the patients, I believe that would just be very upon the dentist and the dental assistant. So like, do they want you to be like, hey, introducing yourself, or would they want you to be in the background? So I think you can kind of play that one by ear. But the main thing is just making sure there's still cohesion in the office. Like you don't want to disrupt anything, but you still want to actually make sure you can see and make sure like it's not awkward with the patient. Like, well, who is this random person standing over me? So like definitely mirror the people around you, check their environment, and just follow the dental assistant and dentist lead. I think you can't go wrong there.
Exactly. So just communication. When you go, there's going to be read the room. That's the biggest thing that Jasmine said. Read the room. A lot of people don't read the room. They want to go with what they think is best and like, hi, I'm so and so. I'm actually here shadowing, and the patient is like, they, behind closed doors, like, do you have a student here? Like, I hope you're working on me, not the student. And they're like, no. Like they're just shadowing. Like, are they getting credit hours, or like, what are they gonna do? Like, no, they're not gonna be working. I really don't want that person working on me. Like, I don't feel comfortable that you discuss some stuff in front of them. And this gets awkward. So just ask them in the beginning, because some doctors kind of like you to stay at the door and listen, and they don't want to deal with that interaction. And some of them are front and center and are like, hey, this is actually Jasmine. She's a student doctor. She's going to Tufts next year. We wish her the best, but if you don't mind, she's going to shadow over the procedure. I really want her to get a feel for this, because she might be coming back in town and shadowing maybe next time you're here. Are you comfortable with that? And they'll handle that situation with the patient. And usually they're like, oh yeah, no problem. But sometimes they might be like, oh no, I don't feel comfortable with that. You know, she's a student. And that's okay too. Don't take anything personally. And then if any questions, just ask. And if it's just you with the patient awkwardly, like, yeah, hey, like, how are you doing today? I'm actually shadowing Dr. Johnson. And usually the patient's pretty cool, like, oh, where are you from, and whatnot. But yeah, definitely don't be awkward. Read the room, see how it goes. And you can even ask the hygienist and whoever you're shadowing, do you want me to introduce myself? Some of them will say flat out, no, like, you stand in the hallway. No, say nothing, because our patients are very like frou-frou. If they feel like you're a student, they just feel weird. And other places are like, no, like, definitely introduce yourself. Like, we don't want to do that for you. Like, go ahead and feel free to introduce yourself to anybody in the office. Now coming up to time, because I want to leave a good amount of time for all the attendees to ask questions. Start asking your questions in the chat, just post them in there and we'll discuss them. I don't see any right now, but go ahead and put them in there if you have any questions. And then otherwise, I'm going to roll with a few more questions that we have. But if you think about anything, go ahead and put it in there. We'll definitely address that as well. Okay, next question. How can I ask if I can shadow again? So you had a great experience in your mind. And you want to come back again to that place. How did you guys arrange that? Did you arrange that ahead of time? Did you ask at the end of the day, or how'd that go?
I would ask at the end of the day. If you thought it was a great day, I think you're feeling confident. You kind of have understanding how the office works. So I think that's the best time they can put a face to your name, not just another email they're receiving. But if you do choose to go with a later route, you can send it like a thank you email for shadowing on such and such, say like a small summary, and then ask there, like, if there's any other opportunities, I would love to come to the office again. So I think in person is best, but you can also send an email as well.
I totally agree. I like to kind of know right then and there, like what did I do wrong or what did I do right? And I think when you end the day, you kind of have like an idea if they want you to come back. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. So I think that's a good sign if they want to see you tomorrow. But if you kind of get like we'll follow up via email, then you may, need to even reach back out for feedback. And the reason why I say that is because you don't want to keep making those same mistakes at future offices. So even if things could have went wrong, for whatever reason, like, you always want to reach back out and say, hey, I'm not sure, maybe follow up via email to have a follow up, and just to see like what you could work on.
Perfect. Some things in the chat bring up fragrances. So one thing about perfume, two things about perfume and non-perfume. So in the dental field, and anyone that's in the dental field that's here, go ahead and chime in on that. But surprisingly, in school, like, so don't wear any strong perfume. It might be your scent, your jam, but like when you go shadow, unfortunately, dentistry is so personal. We're so close with the patients, and the scents could be very irritating to some people. Some people might have allergies, or they just don't want to sit there and smell your fragrance over and over the whole day. Even though it smells good, it can be kind of irritating to the nostrils. But there's also several people in dentistry that maybe through cultural experience or religion don't wear deodorant. So you just have to be mindful of that, because that could also be irritating to a patient or staff. And that's something on a lot of schools handbook and policy that they unfortunately have to go over every year, because there's usually a couple people who don't wear deodorant or don't wear enough. So always be mindful of scents, because dentistry is a very close personal contact realm where you'll be interacting with that patient for probably about an hour. One of our questions is, what is the best way to document shadowing hours? And I think, Jasmine, you updated a PDF.
Yeah, I just
that?
updated,
Okay.
like, it's not like the actual, what I did, I had it like in an Excel, but I just kind of copied over the fields that I think that you should kind of document, especially if you're going to like a number of offices. If you're not going to a number of offices, it's kind of easy just to put like the one or two on your resume, or, just write it down somewhere. But the things that I included was like in the fields, like the name of the person shadowing, the date and times I would, the descriptions of what I would do there, the number of hours, whether it's like 4 hours a day, and then I did it for a number of weeks, and then at the end I have a total. And then most importantly, the contact information, because you most likely will follow up with them for, like I said, a potential letter of recommendation. So maintaining that communication, what's the best information to stay in contact with them. And even at the end of that, like have like a little section about like, what have you learned, so that you can talk about that in your future personal statement. Because they love to ask those questions in dental interviews, like, talk about what you did as a dental assistant or in shadowing opportunities. So I think that's just good to document then, because sometimes you forget when you go through schooling. So
very true. A lot of interviews, they ask about how was volunteering at blah 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 clinic in this place, and you're just like, oh, it was good. And they're like, well, tell me about that. You're like, so you want to eliminate that. So you just want to know your application through and through, especially all the stuff that you did, because they will ask about something so you think would be minute, like, oh, I volunteered there, I already put everything I listed on my application, but they will ask, and you want to make sure so it doesn't sound fake. A lot of people make up a lot of their volunteer stuff, so they're also trying to kind of get a gauge for that. Have you all seen high correlation between you shadowing and how it's helped you in dental school?
I would say yes. Dental schools definitely like to see you shadow a general dentist. I think that sometimes people overlook that if they know they want to specialize, but the core of it all, you're going to be a dentist first. So they do want to see majority of your hours shadowing a general dentist. I knew I wanted to be a general dentist, so I actually worked for Heartland Dental before dental school. So I was blessed to shadow different offices. So I think maybe 10 or 12 offices just a private practice, and seeing how those work out. That was definitely helpful for me, since I want to own my private practice. It's just seeing like how each dentist works, or like their patient population, or like how the chairside manner, just everything is how it all comes together. Also keeping in mind your amount of hours also correlates to like potential dental interview questions. So if you're putting down that you shadowed 500 hours at this office, you can be expected to answer a question about a procedure, like what is a composite and the steps, since you spent so much time there. So just keeping those things in mind, like you want to have shadowing, but you don't have to go over the top. And if you do go over the top, make sure that you're learning something, make sure you can actually recite that information later and be competent about it.
Correct. If something doesn't add up, it sounds like you're lying. So don't get caught in that trap, because it is weird to do 500 hours. Anything over like 200 hours it sends like red flags to the admissions committee. So they're going to ask anything that's not normal, not typical, and that could be very well, but like know your stuff. Don't go in like, how early should you start looking for shadowing opportunities? Should I aim just for the required hours?
I would say to definitely start as early as you can. Like, you don't want to like wait and then like possibly, now everyone's trying to shadow because they know they have to get a certain number of hours. And every school is different with the number of required hours. So like you would need to look at what each school requirements are. Like some schools only require 50 hours. Some schools require 1,000 hours, like whatever that may look like for your school. Like, I think you would need to do your research, and that's where it comes important, like where if you actually did the research, because if you didn't do the research and you only put in 20 hours on your application, they can clearly see that you didn't take the time to review their website to see what they actually want you to do. So the required hours really depends on your school of choice. And I would always say aim to do a little bit more, because, things happen and you can't account for things like COVID was a big thing. If people would have like maybe shadowed before that, they wouldn't have been lacking in a lot of hours. So people had to do like what they call virtual shadowing, which I have no idea what virtual shadowing look like, but there is a such thing of that.
We actually had at our last webinar, the dental student who created virtual shadowing. It was very interesting. But he invented it and like had it out there and it was successful. So yeah, not crazy. Alexxis, anything to touch up on that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I would just aim higher. I never try to settle with that because you know, your DAT score, your GPA, COVID, life happens. Just you always want to try to do the extra bump because you want to stand out.
Exactly like what Jasmine said. They are very good. There always will be that one person. If it requires 20 hours and you did 20 hours, bet that someone could be like, oh, I noticed you did 20 hours. We require 20 hours. You didn't have an hour more. Like you will get that person. So just don't even set yourself up for that situation. It's always better to do more. Is it better to get shadowing hours at multiple offices or to get most of them from one place? That's a good question.
Well, I kind of did a mix, honestly. So like I said, because I didn't want to take away from my studies in undergrad, I chose to do it during a break. So I'm like, there's nothing else to focus on. No exams are like lacking. So I did like a week there, but I think that was early on. That was like my initial interest. And then later on, I did multiple offices, kind of see like, oh, is it private, maybe corporate or like a specialty, just so you can know for sure, like this is a field you want to invest the rest of your life in. So I think it's a mixture of both. I don't think any of them hurt.
Absolutely. I would say go with multiple because, the whole point of shadowing gives you the opportunity to see like, is dentistry really for you? It's not about, trying to get the number met required hours, because if you don't like it, like you're going to waste a lot of time just applying and then you realize you don't like it. So the more opportunities that you're surrounded by it, like if I would have allowed my first shadowing experience to take, if I wanted to be a dentist, I probably would have been like, oh, maybe I don't want to do dentistry anymore. Because like that first experience, I didn't really kind of like find it appealing. I didn't really felt like I learned a lot that day. I felt like I was just a boring day. Like, I don't want to do this, So I had to keep putting myself out there in different areas. And then I said, like, after shadowing several different fields and people, that is what kind of made me really want to continue down that pathway.
Exactly. The different specialties, different offices, because it looks a little fishy. Let's say you only stayed with one dentist and you have 200 hours and that's the person that you knew you wanted to go to dentistry. But let's just say, for example, that person, the cookie cutter practice, meaning like they do propies and veneers. That's it. So that's their idea of dentistry. So they're worried that when you go in, oh, you have to do fillings, you have to do root canals, you have to take out bombed out teeth. Will she still like it, or will she bail out? Like, oh, I didn't know I want to get into this perio, calculus, like, oh, I didn't know it was all this. So they want to make sure that you will last, that you understand dentistry is all encompassing. It's not just veneers or not just cleanings or not just easy visits. And they also want to make sure that you're not shadowing your mom's best friend for 2 years. And you're like, oh, she had a Lexus. I want that lifestyle. They want to make sure you're well-rounded and that you're not going to quit and that you really truly understand all that dentistry encompasses. Perfect. And let's see, with what you know now, what will you do differently during shadowing?
I don't think I would do anything differently. And maybe I think shadow like me, I'm an oral surgeon. I think I bet something exciting to see like the ranges. Because right now in dental school, we're just like kind of waiting for our rotations to see like the different avenues of dentistry. So I think that would kind of be cool, like seeing each specialty, like, endo, perio, peds, just to see beforehand. I think that's about it, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think I would change my experience either, because like I said, I definitely shadow all different types of dentists initially. So I realized early, like, no offense, but like peds wasn't for me. I was like, I don't want to be in here. No, I can't do this. And even now in my rotations, it gives me like I'm just like, oh my God, like I cannot focus. I'm just like, not every case is like that, but it's like I just knew early. I was like, oh, I don't think I want to go back to that office. But that was my learning opportunity to say, I think I would like to go down this trajectory. And, again, it's like, it's not like you will never see it again, because you will. Dental school, like I still have to go through the pediatric rotations. I still have to, know how to handle the patients, but also their parents and all of the people in the room, and my PCs. And, you have to think about that when you're like shadowing as well, because I think we just kind of just think we're like, once we get in dental school, we kind of just do what we want to or what makes us happy. And you have to do everything because you have to learn everything. So even if you feel like, oh, I know I want to be a periodontist, I know I want to be an oral surgeon, I know I want to just do veneers every day, like you're going to do the pros every day. You're going to take impressions every day. You're going to take so many impressions. I mean, so many. So you're going to be loving pros, whether you want to or not. You're going to love peds, whether you want to or not. So you might as well just take up every opportunity and like, look at it like I just said, what I have learned to love about peds is like my love for anesthesiology now. So I'm trying to pursue an anesthesiology residency, which means I will be working alongside a lot of pediatric dentists, because those are the patients who we're most likely putting to sleep. But again, I'm putting them to sleep.
Exactly what they both said, because you don't know where life will take you. I hated kids, hated everything about kids. I went to UF, and that residency was, the rotation was so stressful because you have to get certain requirements and competencies done, and we only have a week to get it done, and the kids were bad. And, oh my gosh, stressful. But I was focused on graduating, so that's why it was super stressful. And working as a GP for 6 years, I hated it. And I didn't want to do dentistry anymore. Found my love. I'm like, I'm only happy when I work on kids. So then I sought that avenue out, and then actually went back into the pediatric residency. And now I cannot see one adult for the rest of my life. And I'm so happy with that. And if you become a dental anesthesiologist, I would hire you. Okay. We need them really bad. Another question. Do you think it would be a good idea to include shadowing hours from my junior year of high school? I graduated from high school 12 years ago. I've been shadowing and working as a dental assistant since junior year of high school. I just don't want my hours to get flagged on the application.
So my rule of thumb was anything in high school I kind of didn't report, just so they will have the most up to date. And that's because I did have an extensive amount. I can see the situation where it'll be like you're working, so you necessarily can't get those shadowing hours. So I think for you, it would be worth noting, because you'll have so much dental experience to counteract the shadowing, like be able to explain why. But honestly, before applying, I would probably try to do something outside of the scope of what you're practicing. So like maybe go shadow a specialty for X amount of hours, just so you can have that diversity of what dentistry actually looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with Alexxis as well. Like I know a lot of people in my class, like they have the privilege to say like they just worked alongside their dad or their mom. So I don't think that is an equal, fair judgment on your character if you're going to be a good dentist, because it's like bias. Your parents, of course, are going to try to get you in dental school. So I don't think that your parent can be your letter of recommendation, or that long time friend who you've been with so long, because it's kind of like they are biased almost. So I think I got letters of recommendation for people I only knew for like a year or sometimes 2 years at most. But I think that'd be a great aspect to like putting your personal statement to highlight the longevity of your experience. But to go that far back, it's not like they're going to go verify it, but you just kind of want to make sure that you're still, like Alexxis said, just showing, that you do have a well-rounded.
I think that also what you said, and in addition, you got to see if you got to outweigh the benefit if it helps you. If you don't have anything else aside from your job, yes, put it. But if you have more current stuff, better put that. And then when they talk to you in the interview process, if you get there, you can let them know like, oh, I've shadowed umpteen times back then. But always look at the downside. They might be like, oh man, but that was 12 years ago. I'd be like, well, I've been in dentistry 12 years. It hasn't scared me yet. Like I always think of like what the worst they could say and counteract that, have an answer to combat that. Because that might be one thing they say, oh, well, that's old, but you're in dentistry all day, every day. So you do at least 40 hours plus some. So I mean, that's dental. Do you need to really get more? Sure, maybe a varied aside from your job. So always look at the pros and cons and have an answer for the pros and cons before they beat you to it. And then you're just kind of like, to beat that. So we're going to be wrapping up in a few more minutes. I have a couple more questions. So how did you guys ask for a letter of recommendation? Like, what did that look like? Email, call, your last day?
So I think I did in person, but I followed up with the email. And in the email was like my resume, like a detailed resume of like everything I've kind of done in undergrad at that point, just so they have more to write about outside like the scope that they know me under, as well as like the timeline and like the explanation of how to upload it to the application, and setting deadlines and stuff like that. So I think that would be a little overwhelming and they wouldn't necessarily remember all those details. So definitely I would ask in person and I'll be like, hey, I'll send you like, maybe it's the headshot, the resume, and like all the details of which the letter needs to abide by.
But the only thing I would add to that, I would do the same thing. But the only thing I would add to that is the new way of like uploading letters of recommendation are so different. So I would, like some schools require for a link to be sent to your recommender, which means if it goes to their spam, they don't know they received it because they're expecting to like just send a letter to the school. And that's just not how it works anymore. It's just for most schools and for most systems, you have to go through this personalized link. So making them aware that this link will be coming to you. This is how it will look so that they know also what the formatting should look like. They can't just have what they want it to look like, just a random handwritten letter. It needs to be a certain format. And like telling them like not what to include, but like obviously most dentists will know what to include because they've been to dental school, so you don't have to tell them, but you're not going to include your weak points. So I know like people like to include things that are going to like make them stand out. So if you have a really high GPA, you know, in addition to maintaining a high GPA, she worked 30 hours a week. In addition to maintaining a high GPA, she was studying for the DAT, which is everyone knows is a really crazy test. So they know the respect when you're studying for that and working and doing school and you still came out with a 25, like they can hold you to like, why would you not accept her when she was able to manage that? So obviously she can manage dental school. So I would say include those other factors if they are, you know, high, because like that is impressive to some dentists, and then they will add that to in addition to like whatever hours you work. But if those are areas like people like even me, like I am not a good test taker. I can study all day and make an A on a test, but I hate standardized tests. So if that's not your strength, just like send in what your strengths are so that they can highlight on those.
Yes, just because they ask you for information about yourself doesn't mean you need to disclose highs and lows. Like just disclose the highs. You're trying to get in, right? You know? How far in advance do you think that you should do that system where they have to do, like how far in advance you should ask for a letter of recommendation?
So I asked about 6 months in advance, just so it gives them time to get in the right headspace for all those stuff that Jasmine mentioned. Just like to let them know, like, hey, I'm going to follow up or concluding me taking the DAT. I definitely did let them know ahead of time because I also was a person that wanted my application done before the application opened. So if you know those deadlines, you kind of have to set up and be okay if some people don't respond back. So because that does happen sometimes. So maybe some people are on vacation or whatever. So that still gives you time to find other letter writers. So I think I personally started maybe around January for the July application, just to make sure I had everyone lined up. I knew which category that letter would fall under, giving them all the timeline as to write those letters, as well as guiding them through the process of getting it to the application. So I did give myself some time to do that.
Perfect. Well, with that, go ahead.
I was just gonna include, I also included it in the chat. I use this system called Interfolio. So all of my letters of recommendations were sent to this system. Then I was able to upload them to my application myself. So I wanted my letters to be sent to me as soon as possible, like, because things come up and you don't want to be delayed with your application process. So when those applications come to that system, you have like your own little bubble. So like when schools are requesting of a official letter of recommendation from this, person, it's still official from Interfolio. And that's where that link will be sent to them. And you can't see the letter still. So I think that's a good way to use it if you want to just get the letter immediately, like right after your shadowing, just in case you don't see them for the next 6 months.
Where do you find the Interfolio? Is that like a third party, or is that through the application process that you see that it says,
it's a third party.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's just like a cloud almost. It's like an iCloud where it holds only like letters of recommendations, and anyone can write it. So you can request it from your professors, you can request it from doctors, dentists, and once they send it to that link, it's still a confidential statement. So when you go to upload your application, you're going to include that link, which in turn, it looks the same as if it was coming from them originally. So I don't know how they do that on the back end, but it works, and it worked for me. Like I said, because like I said, if you tend to shadow or do things early, like even when it comes to you doing biochemistry and biology, you don't want to not see these professors for 6 months to 2 years, and they'll go ask for a letter of recommendation. So you can get that letter now, and it would just still be in that cloud.
Oh, that's so smart. I've never heard of that. So before, exactly what you said, 2 years later, I'm like, awkward. Can I have a letter of recommendation? Or like, who are you? Did you take my class? I'm like, yeah, back in like 20 something.
Exactly.
Wow. Learned something new. Awesome.
Oh, I did have one more thing to add. I think someone asked about the shadowing documentary. I kind of mirrored all my volunteers, community service hours, and shadowing based on the actual application of the boxes I'll have to fill later on. So that's something maybe you can Google, or let's put in like an Excel sheet. So like including the supervisor name, the position title, the type of dentistry observed, like a brief description of what you watch, because you're not going to remember 2 years, 2 months later, like what did you see and who did you spoke with to? Obviously the number of hours and like the date. So like those things are asked on the application. And I feel like that really helped me finish the application a lot quicker because I already had that information of So just be detailed in your documentation.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much. That concludes our session today of shadowing do's and don'ts with Jasmine Perry and Alexxis Harris. Go Gators. Hate to say that, but I had to include it. Okay. Just some housekeeping for the future. Our next meeting is July 15th. That's for mentors and mentees. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth on how to effectively shadow, or the topic of your choice with your mentors. And then our next webinar, just like this, is August 2nd for our goal setting workshop. It was nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, panelists, if you guys don't mind, perfect. You guys put your email in there for people to go ahead and contact you if they have additional questions pertaining to the webinar or in the application process as well. Again, thank you guys so much for attending. I really appreciate it. And have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.